Alright, it's time to do the upper. It's the next day, buddy. Kids are at candy or sleeping and fucking sick, man. Dropping shit already, you know, as we are. That looks mid. That does not look very pretty. It's had quite a bit of moisture in there. Hard to tell, but the inside of this barrel looks rather dirty. Rather dirty. It's hard to tell whether or not it's got the same corrosion going on. It possibly could. We'll have to see how easily that all just comes off. It looks like it's going to come off quite easily, so it's probably fine. Right, things we check here. You know what, I might just start stripping this down and clean it off, and then when I'm putting it back together I shall talk about things I find and the things I do. Alright. So, these fellas here, the little screw that holds that spring in is sometimes a little loose, so I like to give them a little snug so they don't come off. If that's missing, that's just missing. We've had one or two so far I've done that have been missing, but you know, doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect anything. These polymer handguards of G&G, they're actually quite nice and they're quite strong. And, you know, makes I like everyone likes G&G polymer stuff. But it is just really nice, and I do prefer it generally, and you know, because I don't like running around all day carrying a gun that's like stupid heavy. Have to like lift it up all the time. It's so annoying, you know. You buggers with the bloody Mr. Muscle Crazy Arms, man, bugger that. I'll be happy with my couple kilo gun, you know. Just run around all day with that. Yeah, oh well. These grub screws here, I actually have a little stash of them that I have bought for doing these guns, because these grub screws, and all the grub screws in fact in the front end of the G&G, they all come loose because none of them are Loctite from the factory. In some ways it's good, because some gun manufacturers, they do Loctite all this stuff, but they use like red Loctite and they use a shitload of it, and you can never ever get them undone. So it's kind of nice that G&G don't do that. Yeah, so what, I can't get that on with these ones loose enough. That's okay, we'll just take them out. We'll just take these grub screws out. They're coming out anyway. Righty-ho. So, put this on here. Try and get the little barrel nut washer centered, as eyeballed as possible. I don't actually have an armorer's wrench, but I have my fancy 90-degree extra long nose pliers, and you can just sit them carefully there and just give it a, it's easier for me to do it over by myself, over here, give it a little snug, and voila, that's tight. What ends up happening, this will be a bit exaggerated because this won't be attached with the grub screws right now, but what ends up happening when these grub screws fall out is if I hold that nice and steady, it is rather exaggerated from the other grub screws, but you end up getting barrel wobble because there is a little bit of distance between this part and this part, even with the washer and everything in there. The grub screws are to actually lock this in solid. So they're not terribly bad if they fall out. It just does silly stuff, like you know, some shots will go left, some shots will go right, some will go over there, some will go over here, just because, you know, that outer barrel flopping around means that your inner barrel will be flopping around just a little bit. And you know, we don't like floppy barrels around here. We like nice Viagra. I mean, nice intact barrels, all all in the right places, you know. Gonna get me some Loctite. There's only a little wee bit of Loctite left in this container. There's a chunk of dried Loctite right on the tip of it all the time. It's so annoying. Just trying to use the very last of it up so I can move on to the nice new big bottle. There we go. Nice glob of Loctite over there. And what we want to do is we want to absolutely cake this in Loctite, because it honestly, it doesn't matter that much that it is or isn't. And this one doesn't matter where it is. There is a little gap on the bottom of these, so if you tighten this up and the holes line up with the bottom, you can't put the grub screws top and bottom because of that. You have to do left and right, but you know, you'll end up finding out if you don't notice it, because you go to put the grub screw in, it'll go all the way through and then fall out the other end, and you'll be scratching your head for a moment. Uh-oh. Come here, stop swimming. The amount of grub screws on these guns, these ones in particular that I'm doing up, that are just completely missing, I'd say it's about a 50%, 40 to 50% missing rate. Meaning that I get some guns in like this, where both of them are actually still in there. Most guns have one missing, and some guns actually have both missing. If you're looking for these grub screws in particular, they are just a M4 grub screw, and you can use any length you want. Hell, you don't even have to use a grub screw. You could use an M4 machine screw, or an M4 bolt, or whatever you want to call it. It's just, it will be protruding out that way, and you'll probably see it with the handguard on, but it'll fit in behind the handguard, no problem. Righty ho, so next we shall reattach this barrel. These grub screws, on this part you've got one there and one there. On this part you've got one there, and one there. If any of these come loose, like any one set, so that set or that set, your barrel will just fall off. Your outer barrel will just be gone. You'll just be playing one day, and then you'll go back to wherever, and you'll just see a nice inner barrel hiding down your handguard, because you've lowered your gun for whatever reason, and the barrel's going whoop, and you haven't even seen it go whoop. And that's a very common thing with these, and one of the guys on one of our airsoft chats just recently actually messaged if anyone had seen their outer barrel, because that actually happened to them, and I posted a video showing them all of this stuff on the chat. So yeah. It's all good. We shall. One of these ones that was red tagged, meaning not going, from our hire guns, was actually, I lowered it in the garage, just carrying it over to the workbench, and the barrel just slid off and fell on the floor. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's why someone tagged this as a bloody broken gun. How long that was in the container at the field or wherever, you know, who knows. But that's okay. I'm trying to get these grub screws centered as best as possible. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, it's not the end of the world, but if you do get them off center, you might be setting your barrel slightly off center, but because it's locked up, all your BBs are going to go to the same spot, so you know, it's not that bad of a problem if it's slightly off. Next we're going to take these ones out and clean up them, which actually looking quite clean. These ones are quite a lot shorter generally. I'm not entirely sure why they've made shorter ones, because you don't really see them anyway. Whatever. G&G trying to be fancy or some shit. I don't know if G&G put this same setup on their higher end models of guns. I haven't really worked on any of their expensive stuff because I'm poor. It's a clever idea for making a cheap outer barrel assembly multiple links without having to have multiple different what do you call them, like molds or anything for like making them. You can just make them one length and then you just trim them to what you want them to be. So props for the ingenuity on that one, G&G. And if I can ever keep this bloody thing on me bloody Allen key for some reason, I keep dropping the bloody thing. There we go. Send that bugger down in there. And snug those two up. Clean off any excess. And there's one that's a smaller size down in here, which is... It is a bit rusty, but I think it's a... Oh, actually, I think the rust was holding that bugger in. Oh, these things are just great for cleaning off your gun in general. No fluids, no nothing. You know, you get home and you got a bit of dirt on your gun, a bit of like dry dirt. Beautiful thing to use. I might give the thing a little bit of... Yep, that looks a lot prettier, doesn't it? Get rid of all that nasty, yucky stuff. Clean off the grub screw. Loctite her up. Send her home. Right, the handguard back on. There we go. Here we go. I'll crack this one out. Can't be bothered dealing with that stupid fellow right now. Gonna put some Loctite on the handguard screws because these things come loose as well. Found quite a few wobbly handguards just because those two screws have been loose. We don't like wobbly floppy stuff around here, as I said before. We like the blue stuff to keep things from getting wobbly floppily. We'll do them up nice and snugly. Geez, a nice sunny day out there today. Brother's buddy, what do they call it? Yongheng, I think. Yongheng compressor just turned up so we could keep his bottles topped off. His HPA stuff. Hasn't got me no HPA stuff, but that's okay. Don't really need it right now. Right, and we got our irons to go on. So I also like to Loctite these on. I haven't seen these come off yet. I think I've had one of the ones I've worked on loose, but that was about it really. So, but you know, this type of thing on our rental guns is only going to be really something that I do once. I shouldn't have to do any of this upper work again. It's just getting it set up that initial time. And once it is all set up and all Loctited and stuck together, it should just be fine for like ever basically. Unless something gets broken or damaged and I have to go back in and tutu with it or fix it. I don't really see that happening too often or too easily. All those birds out on the lawn. Bloody birds. I like birds. Birds are nice. Birdie, birdie, birdie. Get them up nice and snugly. Don't really matter too much, but I'll send to that for windage. As he says, well, fucking working on an airsoft gun. What a funny guy that rentals use. Clean off the threads on there just a little bit. Blow that out of there. Such a better applicator on this bottle versus on the smaller bottles. Applicator is so nice on that. Do recommend the bigger bottle applicator if you've got the small bit more money. I use most of the little bottle on all the rentals already, so that's a good old tack bottle of Loctite. That one now. For all the rest of them and everything else. Very good. The only thing really left here, which apparently still has crud on the end of it, is our flash hider. Now, because rentals are just absolute rough buggers, a lot of these I'm having to Loctite on just to fill up the space in the threads, because a lot of them, the threads are actually just damaged on them because they shove them into the ground all the time. This one's actually okay. This one's fine. So we're not gonna Loctite this one on. If it comes back and it's all loose and flopping around like silliness, then yeah, we will Loctite it on. But right now, it's fine. It's holding. The threads aren't that badly damaged. I can see a whole bunch of dirt hiding in behind here, which is which brings me into my next point. The only thing left on this whole gun, other than test firing and whatnot, is this. So, for quite a long time now, we've been telling all of our rentals that our rental guns are blue tag, which in New Zealand is 1.13 joules. And the weight that we put in them for the rentals is 2.5s, and they're like 20-ish, 15, 20-ish FPS over the blue tag limit. So for a while we've been telling them the wrong thing, so they've had no MED. We haven't had any problems, but you know, it's better, I think it's better to have them actually, you know, if we're telling all our members that we can't run hotter and then giving them a different tag and whatnot, why are we letting our rentals do it, kind of thing, you know? So I'm fixing them all up. So the ways you go about reducing power in the AEG. One very easy thing you can do is adjust your spring, either by getting another spring, which costs money, and I don't want to spend $20 times like 40 guns. Another thing you could do is you could cut the spring. Personally, I don't like cutting springs. I like changing the power in other ways, because it doesn't leave a flush surface for either the... You're meant to put it up by the piston end so that it doesn't do anything silly trying to go onto the spring guide, but it still doesn't leave that flat surface. You can heat it and squish it in, but spring steel, it's heat treated. It's not meant to be heated. If you heat it, you wreck the tensile of it, like the tensile strength of it. It's a heat treated item. The other thing you can do to reduce power is short stroke your sector gear, which is a very, very, very good way to reduce power in any AEG. However, you need a steel release tooth or you will cook your piston very, very quickly. These only have one steel release tooth, so I can't remove any teeth by short stroking it. So because I don't want to buy a spring for them, and because I don't want to short stroke them or buy a piston to short stroke them, which would cost money for all of that, what I've decided to do instead is cut the barrels down. And I've found that you actually have to take quite a significant amount off of these barrels to get them to drop that 15 to 20 FPS. About 75 mils gets us a little bit more than that, but it gets them all around sort of 305 FPS, and 312 on a 2.5 is the limit for that. So we're a little bit under, just on purpose, so that, you know, any flyers or weird shots or whatever will be within that tag. And honestly, that 15, 20 FPS shooting out to range, you can't tell the difference unless you've got some magical range set up and you can measure it exactly. You're probably losing like a meter of range. It's not really much to complain about. Well, what I shall do is I shall start pulling this apart and show you how I go about shortening a barrel. One thing I also like to do with these is I will demonstrate this by putting it in the receiver. I've never seen one come out, but the pin here that holds the hop arm on, what would happen if this pin starts walking its way out all the way this way? That's right, it'll fall out and you'll be missing parts. I don't know why G&G assemble these with those pins in this side. I flip the pin around so it's going in this way, and I have tested it on my gun because I put one of these hop-ups in my gun by trying to push it out that way when it's installed, and it can't actually come out when it's the other way around. So I really don't know what G&G were thinking there, but I flip all of those pins around the other way so they just can't come out. So I might give this a little bit of a time skip just to get this stripped down and whatnot and prepped. All right. So, I got the outer barrel in my vise, got the end that I'm not using in the vise, so if any squish happens, it happens in an area that's getting chopped off, so it doesn't fucking matter. These are a 275mm barrel, and I chop 75mm off, and I leave 200mm on the barrel. I do have angle grinder. I don't. It's fucking it's just noisy and messy. So you know, I just got me a hacksaw. You know, honestly, these things are so underrated. They're amazing for just working on airsoft stuff in general. You know, they're pretty damn easy to use. So I shall get back to you with the next step on this after I cut it. So, my next step and your next step may vary depending on the tools you have available to you. I like to use my disc sander thingamabob here just to get this tidied up and flush on the end. You, however, may only have sandpaper. I do use the sandpaper afterwards because it's a lot finer grit, just to help, you know, get this get it nice and cleaned off and almost polished, but I'm not going to polish it. And when you're doing this, don't just go in lines or like this. Do like nice figure eights and circles and twist the barrel just a little bit, and it just helps get everything level and square. This will get it a lot more square, a lot quicker, a lot easier. And don't force it into it. Let the tool do the work. Rotate the barrel while trying to keep it nice and square, and you'll have no problems at all. Righty ho, now that you've got the end of your barrel nicely flush and sanded off, don't forget to just do a little bit on the outside edge to take off any burrs. A good way to tell when this is nice and square is if you use a hacksaw, you'll have a little bit that's like folded over on the inside, a little burr, and as you sand it down on the sandpaper and you just look at the end of it, eventually you'll see that little burr on the inside just fall off, and that's a good indicator that you got that nice and flat. And the next thing, and probably one of the most important things, other than cleaning this, don't forget to fucking clean it, and do not do it with any of your hop-up stuff on it. Take it all off. But the other thing you need to do is you need to crown the inside of this barrel. You can use whatever you want to crown them. In the past, I have used just a rotary stone and a drill, just before I had a tool. But I have acquired the tool for doing so. There are so many different ones you can get for doing this. This is just an old drill press that I have acquired, and I just let the tool do the work. Again, don't just force this thing up in there. Let the tool do the work. If it's chattering, just back off the pressure, keep it going nice and steadily, just until you got a nice crowning in there. So I will be back again once I have done that. Righty ho. Look at that. Can I get you to focus? Can I get you to focus? You can see that lovely crowned edge on the inside of that barrel. It's almost, or pretty much is, like better than bloody factory. There is obviously the slightly more expensive tooling option way of doing that by putting it on a lathe and chopping it down and using all of those fancy tools. But if you don't have a lathe, I really want a lathe. If anyone want to give me a lathe, that'd be nice. But yeah, if you've got a lathe, you can do that a lot easier, I would imagine. Yeah, I've cleaned this all out. I shouldn't have to say, but when you clean this out, you are working on this end. Don't clean it this direction, clean it that direction, so that you don't catch the metal filings and push them all the way through the barrel to get them out. Just go this away. Get what you can out first. I have air compressor, so chut down the barrel helps get rid of 99% of it to start with. But yeah, go that way so you don't scratch it all up. In cleaning this barrel, there is no corrosion on the inside of this barrel. It's absolutely mint. So we shall put this back together. And there is one other thing, not only for making this to the tag limit or to the power limit of our field, and New Zealand's no MED rule generally. Not only are we saving money by doing it this way, but there's another benefit which involves the gun itself when the rentals are using them. Instead of Mr. Barrel sitting over here, Mr. Barrel now sits somewhere over here. So when they inevitably shove these things into the ground like they always seem to do, because they're always caked in dirt, they have to shove it a long way before they're actually going to plug the barrel itself with dirt. Meaning you won't have BBs back up down the barrel because they haven't realized they've shoved dirt in it and just keep shooting it and not realizing there's no BBs coming out. It's making a funny noise. Yeah, so you know they won't fill the barrel up and then bust the hop up and do other silly stuff. It's just an extra added benefit by adjusting your power this type of way. So what I like to do after you've also cleaned that bugger is one of the places where I use a silicone grease. Don't use silicone oil very much anymore. So all you want to do is you want to get just a little wee bit. And here's your nice window. So I like to go over here and over here. And you can even go over there if you want. And just kind of spread it around. Don't get any by the window. Don't get any on there. That helps you to put the rubber on. It helps keep the rubber nice and supple and all of the good stuff. You know, obvious shit. Line up your fucking notches. Slide her on forward. Lift the patch over the window. Don't just fucking shove it on. Then take yourself a little bit more silicone grease. Or whatever grease you want to use. Doesn't have to be silicone grease. I have silicone grease. I have lots of little grease pots. And I don't know why there's a big ass hair in there. But it's like cat hair, bloody cat. Cat hair gets everywhere. Yeah, you want to just grease up the outside of that. That helps you put this into the hop up. Make sure your nub is still in place. Helps you put it in the hop up. And not only will it help you put it in the hop up, when it comes time to pulling this apart in the future, it will actually allow you to take the damn thing out. Because you can never take them out when you leave them like bone dry or bloody, even worse, cleaning them with IPA and putting them in bone dry. It's like the worst thing ever. I'm going to just quickly make sure these things are adjusting in center. This is probably the worst alignment out of all of the ones I've done so far. Will it make a difference to BB flight? Possibly. Will we notice? I don't know yet. The combination of hop rubber and window on these things, and they're not the best, but they work pretty well. The actual window, this has got the two grooves that go down, almost like little snake fangs or whatever, that go down and protrude into the window. But they're almost too big for the windows in these. I'm just going to assume that this is all G&G parts. I'm not actually 100% sure on it, but I'm pretty sure that they're G&G stuff. This ring, there we go, doesn't want to come off. I was doing that before too, the little bugger. What is your problem, Mr. Hop-Up? I want to get you back out and check on you. Alright, fast forward time. Ooh, righty-ho. This is now ready to go. Have a test fire. I set the hop And one other thing I do with all these rentals is I mark the hop where the adjustment is to have 2 5s flayed nice and straight and then drop off before they start lifting. And generally with this setup, that's pretty much exactly 3 clicks up on the hop on these, but we'll get there. Make sure it all feeds and functions properly, and then a quick chrono, and then this one is ready to be handed out to a rental to break it again, and that'll be fine and handy dandy and all that stuff. So I will see you at the range. Righty ho, where I stay, I am lucky enough to have shooting out to distance. So, got semi. See if I go above the phone, eh? Full auto. Working mint. Let's go hit up that chrono. So there's our FPS on there, 1.091 joules. So that is under. The highest shot we got was 310, still under, which is a lot better than like 325, which would be into our green tag on our lovely chart that I made up for our field. Yeah, it's a fancy chart, that thing. If you're going to buy a chrono, don't buy this mini one. It's absolute dog shit. One thing I find that makes them better is if they start playing up, put a fresh battery in it, even though the battery is like 80% charged. 80 to 100% charged battery works so much better in these. And if you have any light at all going into here, they just forget it. They don't fucking work. That's okay. We shall sit my telephone back here and do the one last thingy that I like to do once I've got the range test done. We'll grab that tool because it's so closest by. We'll pop that sucker there out. And one last thing I like to do to make everyone's life easier so that rentals have a fun time. This one actually took 4 clicks, which is slightly different to all the other ones, but that's okay. I just like to give me wheel a nice mark here, and there's already a notch here, so we just kind of mark that notch. And just like that, whoever picks this gun up when they go to put a battery in it in the morning can quickly rack back the charging handle if it's still got the little fake bolt plate in there, and see that, and if it's not lined up, line them up, and then the rentals don't have to worry about it. Some of them will tutu with it. If they want to tutu with it, that's fine. Doesn't bother me. One thing with making these barrels that exact length is they're a pain in the ass to line back up to go into the bloody receiver. But that's okay. Oh, speaking of fake little bolt plates, we'll drop that in there. And with all of that said, and this pin that wants to go in, there we go. With all of that said, there we go. One lovely gun ready for a rental to break it. See you later, Chi.